Good morning. I'm Vernon Loeb, Executive Editor of Inside Climate News. Welcome to ICN Sunday Morning. In a moment, I'll be talking to reporter Kiley Bense about a story she put together last week, a comprehensive analysis of the first 100 days of President Trump's second term and what it means for the climate, the environment, and energy. Good morning, Kiley.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I think you really wrote the story of the week on President Trump's first 100 days in office. And I've got to say, you wrote a really strong lead. 100 days into the second Trump administration, many environmentalists' worst fears about the new presidency have been realized and surpassed. How much reporting did it take to produce a piece like this? I noticed you were the first of 7 bylines.
So this was a comprehensive, big story. There were 7 reporters on it. It included the voices of 16 sources. So that is a lot to wrangle in a fairly short amount of time. But I feel that that was necessary in order to capture all that's happened since January. We really felt we needed that breadth and depth to tell the full story.
Yeah, and it was an incredible 100 days. I mean, some people have called it shock and awe. I was amazed by how much you were able to work into the piece.
Right. Yeah. It is an incredible amount of information. Almost every day, there has been kind of a slew of breaking news related to climate, to the environment, to energy, and we were trying to get the most important things into this story.
Yeah. You quote the head of the National Resources Defense Council as saying, if this assault succeeds, it could take a generation or more to repair the damage. So why is that?
I think one of the main reasons is all of the cuts that have happened to staffing at federal agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, like the Department of Health and Human Services. Thousands of federal workers have been let go over the past few months. And when they left, they took with them decades of experience and expertise with writing, interpreting, and enforcing our environmental and health protections. And it's not easy or even possible to replace a workforce like that. And so, thinking about going forward, what that means for the ways that our regulations are enforced, interpreted, carried out, it could be really devastating.
Yeah. And I guess once the environment is damaged, it's damaged.
Right. So that's the second thing is that some of the things that the administration is proposing or already started working on are things that you can't reverse. So building out fossil fuel infrastructure is something that will be with us for a long time, even if the administration were to reverse course.
Right. And the carbon emissions will remain in the atmosphere for decades. Um, the piece includes really a full-throated statement from the Trump White House. Just read a little of it. As the president has said, the American people deserve clean air and clean water. That's what the White House spokeswoman Taylor Rogers told you. Um, I notice also you included a remark from a Harvard lawyer as saying this is a master class in doublespeak. But what's it been like dealing with the administration?
It's certainly been challenging. Political reporters expect a certain amount of spin when they're talking to politicians, when they're talking to press representatives for politicians. Like that is pretty normal. But with this administration, particularly with the second Trump administration, they tend to say one thing and do exactly the opposite. And that Earth Day press release that we quoted in the article about the 100 days is kind of a really powerful example of that. You can kind of go bullet by bullet and say, okay, here's what they're saying they're doing. So, for example, they say that they're following science, and then here's what they're actually doing. They're cutting research funding, they're pulling us out of the Paris Agreement. They're ignoring climate science and conservation science. And if you go down the list of that press release, it's kind of, each point, you can do the same thing.
Yeah, there was something a bit Orwellian about that for sure. But it has struck me that the Trump administration is more on its communication game than it was in the first term, that they're prepared to comment and they, in fact, want to comment. They want to hear from us and they want to engage with us. Am I reading that correctly?
I mean, as far as I can tell, yes, it does seem like they are very eager to get their message out, and to, include their messaging in articles. But I think that it's really important as journalists, since our job is to cover and print the truth, we have to be really careful we're not spreading misinformation. And when we include messaging like that Earth Day press release, we want to fact check it really carefully.
Yeah. So the piece you wrote is a long story. I think it's over 4,000 words. It probably helped that you taught writing at Columbia, quite frankly, putting it together. I wonder what are you most pleased by with this piece in terms of the insights you brought to bear?
So for me, working on this piece it felt really important because there's so much happening every day, as we mentioned previously. It is overwhelming. It can be hard to keep up with what's going on. And I think it's very hard when you have that onslaught happening, that churn every day. It's very hard to take a step back and be able to see the full picture. And having a long, comprehensive piece with context, with a variety of voices, with comment from the administration, from politicians. It gives us a chance to step back and see, the patterns, the trends, where are we headed? What are the things that stuck and what didn't? What's being implemented? What has been struck down? What's being challenged? And what does it all mean? I think that Inside Climate News does this kind of thing really well, and I think it's really valuable, especially with the chaos that's happening right now.
Right, right. Um, with the president's decision to take the country out of the Paris Climate Accord process yet again. I was struck by a comment from an attorney that you had in the piece, an attorney from the Western Environmental Law Center, who said, the fact that we're isolating ourselves from the rest of the world just seems a profound mistake. What were people telling you about the second exit from Paris?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of concern and fear. We are on track right now to surpass the targets set by the Paris Agreement. And, short of drastic cooperation, action, we will surpass that target. And so I think, there's just a feeling that we are going in the wrong direction at the worst possible time.
Yeah, yeah. The crisis is accelerating, and we're
Right.
not there at the table to try to slow that acceleration down.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. I was also struck by a comment from Jeff Gisler, who's the program director at the Southern Environmental Law Center. He said the lasting legacy of this administration will be determined by how the nation responds to it. So what did he mean by that? And when I read that, I took it as kind of a hopeful thing. Um, what did he mean by that?
I think it is a hopeful thing. I think that he and others like him, they're putting a lot of faith and hope in the courts because a lot of the things that the administration has proposed doing or is trying to do are not legal. And so if they try to implement these policies, they will get legal pushback. If our courts function the way they're supposed to, a lot of these things will be struck down. I think that he is also hopeful that there will be public outcry, that there'll be a public response, because as he pointed out, a lot of these things, like, for example, firing Forest Service and National Parks workers, are not popular. And so I think that, there is a sense that some of this stuff there could be pushback and it could be challenged, it could be struck down. But it's really important to emphasize the seriousness of what is happening right now and how difficult it will be, to go back to where we were 3 months ago.
What do you think about the actions of individual people in terms of joining the resistance? How much does that matter, or how much will that matter in the long run, do you think?
I mean, that is a really good question. I wish I knew the answer, but I do think that it matters what the public does and how the public responds. I think that the public raising their voices and, talking to their representatives, demanding answers about some of these policies if you're unhappy with them, I think that does matter. And I think that you shouldn't take your voice for granted.
Kylie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. And thanks to all of you for your support, and have a great rest of your weekend.